We'll use the same format we've been using. I'll have these guys kind of introduce themselves, and then I'm going to fire away with questions. And really excited to have these guys on tonight, and I appreciate you guys doing this. These roundtables have been awesome, and I'm sure this one is going to live up to that standard. So just a quick introduction, who you are, where you coach. You want to talk a little bit about your past, that's fine too. And then, in terms of, being a coach on the defensive side of the football, just a coach in general, your biggest influence. So go ahead, Skip, we'll start with you.
Okay, fellas, Skip Capone, assistant football coach, DC, offensive line coach at Portland High School. This is year 45, I think. I haven't got enough fingers and toes to count that high, but my biggest influence is played at Portsmouth High School. I'm a New Hampshire guy. Tom Bonnevie, my head coach in high school, really inspired me. My head coach in college, Tom Bell, who ironically coached Ricky Marcella when he was at University of New Haven. Ricky and I become great friends. And then I want to mention one guy tonight who's actually still coaching. Jim Dunn is at Spalding High School in Rochester. Coach Elwell might know him. Coach Rotzko. Jimmy was a longtime coach at Dover for many, many years. And that was my first coaching job. And he taught me more about the art of coaching in the 9 months I coached with him than probably anybody else I've been around. And I'm not talking about X's and O's, but just you guys know what I'm talking about. Went from there, Plymouth State as a D-line guy, Southwest Missouri State as a D-line guy. Lost my dad, came back and left the Midwest, came back and took a job at Winnicott, same thing, O-line, D-line. Took a job at Lewiston. Was fortunate enough to have some pretty good success there over the years, produced some pretty good linemen. I had a chance to coach with my best friend, the greatest football mind ever, who's going to be on, who I'm going to introduce next, Chris Kempton. And then I went to Bates. He went to Colby. We had a chance to coach together. While I was at Bates, I coached both the offensive line for 4 years, spent, I think, 11 years on defense, most of those with Chris, and then came back and finished up as an offensive line OC, and I also was a special teams coordinator, and feel real blessed to coach this game. And thanks for being here, fellas. Next, Coach Kempton.
Oh, you're taking over the moderating now?
I just did, just for you.
Jeez, throwing half out of the way already.
That's good, man. I can drink more.
Chris Kempton, unemployed. Spent the last 4 years down here in Florida, where I'm at right now, coaching at a private independent school, Out of Door Academy. The past 4 years, 2 as head coach and 2 as DC. Prior to that, at Bates for 10 years, 8 of those as DC there. Like most of us, my father was definitely my biggest influence. First pictures of me as a baby were on Libby Field, retrieving balls for Trent Murphy out of the woods behind the north end zone on Libby Field. So, I wouldn't have gotten 34 years of coaching without my dad. And just a couple other guys that have been really important to me. Tom Austin, former head coach at Colby College. Mark Harriman, former head coach at Bates. And my buddy over here who busts my balls all the time, Skip. Those guys have been great influences on my career. So appreciate it.
If I'm not mistaken, Coach Kempton, your dad, Carlo Kempton, coached my dad at Libby Field a long, long time ago. So,
Yes, he did.
Yeah, we go back a ways. So, Coach Bonnevie, you're on, man.
Man, it's going to be tough to follow these two guys here, but so yeah, I've coached for over 30 plus years. I was at Jay for 24, 14 as an assistant, nine as a head coach. I was at another school for 1 short year that I've put in the past, and now I've been at Levitt for 9 years, I think, as a defensive coordinator. My early influence was definitely I had a chance to play for 2 great coaches, John Tagliani, who was the head coach at Jay for 35 years, and then his assistant Mike Henry, who took over after him. Then I was an assistant with Mike for 14, and then was the head coach at Jay until we ended and combined with Livermore. So I think that was 50-something years of just 3 head coaches. So that was pretty cool to be part of that little streak. Yeah, that's about all.
Coach Coop?
Yeah, so Kevin Cooper, head football coach at Bonnevie High School. Just finished my 22nd year there last fall. Grew up in Fairfield, Maine. Played for my dad at Lawrence. Still the best coach I've ever come across. Lucky enough to play for him in high school. Played football at Dartmouth College. Had a couple of great defense coordinators when I was there. Coach Brown, who coaches at Michigan, was the DC my sophomore year. Coach Lyons, who's been the DC at New Hampshire now for about the last 10 or 12 years, was the coordinator my junior and senior year. So very lucky to play and learn from those two guys. My first coaching job right out of college, Maine Maritime Academy. Worked with Coach Huard. Definitely a pivotal moment in my coaching career. I went from probably wanting to be more of a athletic administrator at the college level or even professional sports management type thing to really deciding I wanted to coach football after working with Coach Huard. Went 2 years as a GA at Ohio, working for a guy by the name of Tom Lichtenberg, who you might remember coached at Maine for a year in 1989. Very lucky to get that job, and then came back and coached at Maine, coached for two great head coaches and Coach Ferentz and Coach Cause. Certainly I've been very lucky to be around the football guys that I've been around.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Kezal?
Yeah, Kevin Kezal at Thornton Academy. I just finished my 20th year here as a head coach. At college, I went to St. Joe's 1 year, then I ended up transferring to Farmington. We didn't have fall baseball. They had to play baseball at Farmington, so I was fortunate enough to be able to go back to my alma mater and start coaching with Jim Hersom and Ron Beatty at Livermore Falls. So I coached for 4 years while I was at school in Farmington. Right out of college, I was fortunate enough to get a job at Thornton Academy. So for 3 years, Dick Agresti was the head coach. John Moran was his first assistant. Had an opportunity to really carve my teeth with them there. And then 3 years later, I was fortunate enough to get the job in 2000. So I've been there since.
Awesome, Coach. And Coach Jones?
Dave Jones. I'm the defensive coordinator at Freiburg Academy. I grew up in upstate New York, went to college and graduate school there. I got my first coaching job at a small private school in New Hampshire called New Hampton. Great experience, got to coach great athletes. Guys like Lawrence Moten, who became the all-time Big East scorer in basketball, was our safety and wide receiver. Probably one of the greatest influence I have coaching is a guy named Harrison Golden, who was the head coach, defensive coordinator when I was there, and a guy named Lou Gennari, who was the head baseball coach. Coach Kempton, in private school, you got to coach everything and do everything. And those guys, I'm 61 and they're well into their retirement, and I still call them up almost every month to get their advice. In 93, I came to Freiburg, been here ever since, 26 years. I'm still the new coach from away. Two great influences, and you guys know him. One, Dan Turner, God rest his soul, great football mind. And the other, Jim Fuzzy Thurston. If there's a guy who represents small town high school Maine football, it's that guy. The great irony being here is I was an OC for 25 years, and because of changes on our staff, and our staff is 4 guys, a couple of years ago I switched over to the defense. So here I am.
Awesome, fellas. We'll get this started with the questions. I just echo on Fuzzy Thurston, man. I had a chance to work a couple obstacles with Fuzz, and you'd be hard pressed to find a better human being on the face of the earth than that guy, man. He's salt of the earth, and I learned a lot those couple, and even Coach Kezal, Coach Coop. I remember back in I think 01 doing my first lobster bowl with you guys and being on that staff with you guys and study, and it really meant a lot to me and shaped me as a young coach, and certainly have had a chance, obviously working with Coach Bonnevie now and having coached, against and stolen a lot from Coach Kempton over the years. I've admired all you guys, and I'm psyched to have you here tonight. And Coach Capone has been an awesome, just an awesome mentor for me, and it's certainly my mission to keep this thing going in Maine and follow the direction that he set forth for us. So that being said, we'll start out. I'll circle around with a question for all you guys, and then we'll kind of start splitting them up after that. But Obviously tackling is a big topic now for everybody. So just talk a little bit at your place about, how you drill tackling, how you work it into the week and what some of your points of emphasis are. So start with Coach Capone.
I obviously tackle where it's at. I remember just real quick, a quick story. Mike Landry, again, dear friend, God rest his soul, just a great guy, great defensive mind. And he was telling me the story. They're playing against Shepherds. They had a kid by the name of Kelsey Hart, who was like a 10-5 sprinter. And they got this particular formation. Mike would scheme up a blitz. Linebacker comes through free, and Kelsey breaks his legs, makes a move, and goes for 70. So whatever scheme you draw up or whatever blitz you scheme up, doesn't matter unless you can tackle. So I really think, and especially now with the game going the way it is, we've got to teach safety, keeping the head out of it. I'm a firm believer in tackling without doing a lot of stuff without a helmet. Starting to do a lot more research now. And if we ever do get back with our kids this summer, one of the things that I want to try to do over the summer is institute some non-contact tackling drills. I'm a firm believer in that. You think about the things that we do as coaches, in the summertime. We get our kids to lift, they run, we throw 7-on-7, all that stuff. But the one thing that we do that's probably the most dangerous for our players is tackling. And I think that's something I know I want to do. I think something we all ought to think about in the summertime is being able to develop a drill progression where you can get your kids into those athletic positions where they can simulate a tackle, so it becomes second nature once you get into actually tackling the pads. But I think starting from the ground up, like a lot of guys have said, I like using key buzzwords. Keep the hips down. I talk about nippling the hands, so we're going to punch through with our arms, tackling near hip, near shoulder, those kinds of things. That your staff has to speak the same language. I picked that up through Kempy, quite frankly. When we were at Bates, developed the tackling progression, and every one of our guys on defense, anytime we were coaching up tackling, said it the exact same way. I think that's really crucial.
Awesome. Coach Kempton?
Yeah, so tackling is kind of evolved in a couple of different areas for me. The tackle progression that Skip talked about. I still think there's a place in football right now for the frontal, hit up tackle. I mean, you got defensive linemen and inside linebackers that are going to get squared up, and so we still, day one, we're going to go through a tackle progression of coming off one foot, pop the chest, shoot the hips, uppercut, and all that stuff on a frontal tackle. So I still think there's a place for it in football. Obviously, people have gone more to the hop tackle stuff now, which, we have too. So tackle wheels, I'm sure a lot of you guys are using those, but we use those every single defensive practice. We're on the wheels in the spring, in the fall, whether we're in pads, out of pads, helmets, no helmets, we're using the tackle wheels every day. And what we're trying to do, we kind of work in phase, out of phase, and profile are really our three phases of our tackles on the tackle wheels. And really the big point of emphasis we talk to the guys about is same leg, same shoulder, being able to generate more power. And we've been fortunate that we've had Ernest Biner, Cleveland Brown, Washington Redskin, legendary running back, who's been on our staff for the past 4 years. He does a lot of training with NFL combine guys over at IMG Academy, and EB's been really huge with the same leg, same shoulder, and how it applies across football in all sports, really. So we really make a point of emphasis with that. So when we're working, the tackle wheel, we're working in phase where, we're out in front of the ball carrier, and so we're going to be, if the tackle wheel was going to our right, we're going to be left foot, left shoulder. And then it would be in a trail phase where we're coming from behind, and now that's where we're going to keep the head out of it, and we're going to be right foot, right shoulder, wrap and roll, hop tackle stuff, and then we'll work some profile, kind of sideline type tackle. So we do a lot with the tackle wheels, and the big coaching point for me is same leg, same shoulder.
Awesome. Coach Vaughn?
Yeah, I mean, all the things that Skip and Chris said are all things that we definitely incorporate as well. We break it down early. Coach Hathaway actually did. I'd never done it till I got there, but he does the 3 whistles, where they're facing each other, and they first whistle they break down, second whistle they step in, and then they finish. So we go steps like that, ramp it up as we go. Is one of the things that we do is we do tackling circuits during the week, but each individual on defensive days, each individual group does a tackling drill that's fit to their position. So like Coach Kempton said, I mean, at every position, their tackles are different. What I do in the DB group is way different than what the defensive line coach is going to do for a tackling drill. So we try to incorporate that, to try to get them to be, practicing the tackle and in the situations that they're going to be faced, during the game.
Awesome. Coach Coop?
So we're gonna start off our first day, especially those 2 days when we're in no pads, and work on our chest to chest fit position, rip the arms up through, run the feet, tackles. But once we start putting the pads on, we're quickly going to move more to the hawk tackle. My feeling is you see that way more in the games than what you do the face-up tackle, and that's kind of a transition that we made over the past couple of years. I was fortunate enough to hear my college coach, Buddy Teven, speak a couple of years ago, and his whole presentation was on tackling the play like the pros, tackle like the NFL players, where they do very little contact, especially during the season, because they can't afford to get anybody hurt. And they've developed a whole series of tackling drills. And if you guys, find it on YouTube, it's called the Dartmouth Way. It's about 20 minutes long. It's really outstanding in how they start to tackle and how they teach it and how the different drills that they do. So we're going to basically follow most of the things in there. And like I said, we'll still practice from time to time the frontal face-up tackle, because, again, I think you got to teach kids that, because it will happen in the game. And the last thing you want is, if a kid gets face-up on a running back, for him to drop his head. So you got to teach it. But honestly, the more tackling in games is more of the hawk tackle. And you got to get like Kempy said, I think the most important coaching point is same foot, same shoulder. You've got to drive the leg through and the shoulder that you're hitting with. If you don't, you leave yourself open with your chest. And once that happens, is number one, you have no power. Number two, the natural instinct is going to be to drop your head because you're going to get hit. And so we'll tackle circuit. Like after the first 2 days, we'll start on Wednesday of camp, and every defensive practice from then to the rest of the season, we'll have a tackle circuit that comes at the really right after stretch, and 4 circuits for the team, and that's how we'll practice tackling. Now, one of the other things we do on the tackle circuit is we don't hit bodies. So we stopped hitting bodies this past year. Again, it was a thing that Buddy spoke on in his clinic. That he when he recruits guys, that he tells them straight up, you'll never tackle a Dartmouth player, and it's the same thing for us. You will never tackle a Bonn Eagle player in practice, because we don't need to wear ourselves out, risk injury, tackling our own guys. We have to worry about tackling other teams' guys. And so we will hit the tackle wheel, we'll hit the pop-up sled, we'll have guys carrying our agile pads, and we'll tackle those, especially whenever we're working the hawk tackle stuff. And I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop kind of a muscle memory where you're exploding through someone carrying an agile pad at full speed, because you don't have to worry about hitting a body. And so hopefully that carries over to the game, where now you're just going to go through that same motion because that's what you've trained your body to do. I'm a big believer in it now. We're not going to change. We hit bags in practice. We're going to tackle circuit. We're going to do our drills that we do, which it's standard stuff that I'm sure all you guys are doing. But we're going to go full speed in all our tackle reps, because we're hitting bags and not people. So that's kind of what we do that maybe might be different than anybody else.
Thanks, Coach. Was that the Dartmouth Way you said on YouTube?
Yeah, the Dartmouth Way. Again, it's like 22-minute, 21 minutes tackle drills. It's awesome.
Great, thanks, Coach. Coach Kezal.
Yeah, I would echo a lot what everyone else has said. You know, the first couple days with no pads. You know, we're doing more square up stuff. Once you put the pads on, then we're doing certainly more of the, you know, the gator tackle stuff, hog tackle stuff. You know, the thing we do is during doubles, we'll tackle every day during defensive practice. So generally on morning practices, the defensive practices. So we'll flex, we'll do some type of installation, and then we'll go right to the tackling circuit, and we're on our ND stuff. Once we get in the season, generally it's 1 day a week that we tackle. We'll tackle on Wednesdays, do the same thing, and it's a circuit. One thing we really try to do though is we set 5 circuits. So you know, one coach will do footwork drills all year. He's got a catalog of drills that he will do, that he'll progress through. Or, you know, if we're struggling at certain positions, if the linebacker group comes, he may have a certain drill he does with them, a different one that he does with D linemen. You know, we'll do a mat tackle drill. The only reason we do mat tackle, we do it with a shield. We will tackle players on the mat, but it's a way for us to really teach that violent arm, chest to chest, grabbing cloth. And that's the reason, you know, we enjoy it. We like doing that one, is just to get the kids to wrap and grab cloth. We do a tackle wheel, and once again, we got a bunch of catalogs there. We'll do the rugby tackle, and then you know, some type of open field where, you know, we want to kind of try to use the sidelines, that extra defender, break them down, you know, use angles to you know, try to either make the tackle and get the person out of bounds. The person will not go to the ground, but we'll just, you know, we'll certainly wrap up there.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Jones, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, to echo Coach Cooper's, we've gone the Dartmouth way, especially since we only have 35 kids in the program. You know, we can't get kids beaten up. And just like Coach Capone, thing we got from my son, who, when he was playing at Plymouth State, all our tackling drills, we take our helmets off. You know, as we do our circuits that on every defensive day, you know, we can see their eyes, they get their heads out of the way, they settle on technique, you know, all the things everybody else has said, you know, same shoulder, same leg, the whole bit, running through the tackle. We try to work a lot too on closing that space, you know, getting into the proper fit to make the tackle. And so as we do our circuits, and one other thing we do with our circuits is, that was another question, we always incorporate in our tackling circuits 1 ball strip drill, you know, second man in or whatever, to make that part of you know, the tackling mentality, to try to force not only the tackle, but, you know, we'd like to get a turnover too. But yeah, the Dartmouth way, we've embraced it totally, and it's made us better tacklers.
So, Coach, you kind of segued me into the next topic here. I'm going to split this up a little bit. Yeah, no, you in the entertainment business. I'm gonna ask you, Coach Bonnevie, and Coach Kezal about how you guys emphasize turnovers in practice, maybe some drills that you use specifically, or circuits that you use. And then after that, I'm going to go to Coach Capone, Coach Kempton, and Coach Coop to talk a little bit about block destruction. Coach Capone specific to the front, Coach Kempton kind of at the second level, at the linebacker level, and then Coach Coop at the third level in the secondary with the corners and safeties. So, Coach Jones, I'll start with you down there since you were the segue. How do you guys emphasize turnovers, and how do you drill it in practice?
Well, you know, we think it's part of a mentality. You know, we want the ball. We want sudden change on defense. So one of the great drills we do, the kids like it, especially. I got this from my son when he was a college defensive back. We call it the chainsaw drill, in which you're coming up from behind. You grab up over the shoulder pad, you grab the hand, and you take your leg and you drive it right up the guy's butt. And it's like starting a chainsaw, right? And then the next guy comes up and scoops and scores. We make sure whenever the ball's on the ground, we expect, you know, we want to scoop and score, or if we call it, you know, safe, we're going to fall on the ball and get it. It's something we harp, and on a defensive day, when we're in our group work, defensive backs, D-line, and linebackers, we always want to incorporate one drill as well as a strip drill, especially one that might be incorporated for that particular position. So it could be simply the defensive backs coming in and you know, working on driving through the receiver in front of them on a hitch and stripping the receiver, you know, those types of things. But we make it an everyday drill when we're on defense.
Coach Kezal, how about you guys at TA?
Yeah, we, you know, we don't do any conditioning at the end of practices. So the only thing that we'll do is on Tuesdays, at the end of practice, we do a 10-minute turnover circuit. So it's once again, it's 5-station. We'll do a fumble recovery. We'll do a scoop and score. We'll do, you know, rip the nozzle of the ball, second man in going for the ball, and then like an interception tip drill. So we just kind of rotate through that. And that's kind of the only conditioning that we'll ever do during a week of practice. And that's kind of how we teach it. We stress it, you know, we're on team D against our looks. We're stressing, you know, trying to rip at the ball. You know, when we're in 7-on-7, you know, we want to go get the ball. We want to pick it, you know, we're really trying to stress. And, you know, I think it's, you know, certainly when you're playing the best teams in our league, you know, we really, you know, we're not going to stop them. And, you know, the best way to stop them is to try to get them to turn the ball over. So anytime you can get 1 or 2 or 3 of those, it's certainly going to really help towards beating those best teams in our league.
Coach Bonnevie, we certainly, the last couple of years, we've done a nice job on our defensive staff with turnovers. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of years, I think more than, you know, the previous years that I was there, we really have been stressing it just all week long in all of our team D stuff. But we do a turnover circuit once a week on defensive day. We have 4 different circuits. I think it's 4, it might be 5. Each with, you know, each one, you know, a different type of drill to force a turnover. You know, we do the rake and punch, and we do a scoop and score. All those same types of things that those guys were talking about. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is where once we really started you know, talking about it and playing it up, and I mean, the kids just totally bought into it, so that like they were so pumped when they were the one that actually did it. Like if we did a second man, you know, we do a second man in drill. So, you know, during a game, if that was the cause of the fumble, I mean, the kids would be running off the field like, you see me, coach? You see how's the second one in? How's the second one in? You know, and I think the more that you stress it and really emphasize it, you know, it definitely leads to success. I mean, we know how big turnovers are. Anytime that you can get the ball back for your offense, especially if you're at Levitt, that's a good thing. I know Hathaway likes it, so.
That's your job, coach, is to get the ball back to me, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, more plays for him. Yeah, he likes that.
There you go. Let's turn it over to block construction now, Coach. We'll start up front with you, Coach Capone. How are you coaching up your TNTs on block construction?
Basically, up front, it's all about get off first. Get off and hands. You know, we stress. You know, I always talk about. You know, I want to make sure our hand placement is great. Look, aim small, miss small. So they really want to be able to see their target. If the target is, you know, breastplate in the armpit, we want to make sure our hands are there. A lot of times when I'm first starting out, I'll put the kids, if we're doing like a 6-point progression, I have them, their thumbs will be on the ground. So as they come up, it forces those hands to be nice and tight. We want to get a lockout. We talk about get off / knockback. I think as a defensive lineman, we want to establish a new line of scrimmage. I want to knock his ass backwards. If I can get that done, the rest of it's going to take care of itself. Okay? From there, just knock back, okay, and then we're running our feet, and then we're going to get off the block. But again, I think I think Coach Martin mentioned the other night, heavy hands. We want to strike. We want to grab cloth. We want to get our hands inside. We want to control that offensive lineman with separation. Okay, head up, boom, and then we go ahead and I talk about push pull. All right, pull and push with the gap side arm to get those shoulders turned. But it's simple. It's get off and knock his ass back. Same, it doesn't matter whether you're inside shape, outside shape. know your man on landmark, and strike and knock the crap out of it. That's your total focus. The other thing about with the hands that I emphasize, it sounds crazy. I talk about getting my hands locked out before that first step hits the ground. It doesn't happen, but if you emphasize that, they get their hands up right now and they get locked out. You got to get them out of that goddamn habit. Being an O-line guy where they want to do this. It's a whole different thing. We want to bring those hands up, feel the strain in the front delt, and get our lockout right here and let it go. All right? We want to keep our pad level. Obviously, our screws right helmet want to be in his throat, so we keep our pad level down. We want to be real violent and use our hands and grab cloth. A lot of kids don't want to do that. Kempton and I call it being Velcroed on a block. We want to be able to get separation, be able to turn one way or the other, and then eventually, obviously, be able to escape.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Kezal, I'm sure you've heard the term before from Coach Ersum. Pepper in the jock was one that he used to use quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
The D-line guy's got to have pepper in the jock, right?
Yeah, he's used that a lot.
All right, Coach Kempton, you want to talk about the backers a little bit on the second level?
Yeah, so for me, it really doesn't matter what level you're at, whether it's D-line, linebackers, or DBs. We're going to teach it initially the same to everybody on defense, because whether you're coming out of a three-point stance or whether you're starting in a two-point stance and backpedaling in transition, when you make contact, every single defensive player is in a two-point stance. So we teach it from day one, everybody out of a two-point stance. And our buzzwords with it are strike, separate, feet, and tear. So if we're just taking on a base block straight at us, we're going to two-hand tear off the block. So if the ball was going to my right, I'm going to strike, separate, run my feet, and then tear down and away off the block and explode off the block to the ball side. So we teach two-hand tear as our initial teaching progression with all the guys. So they all know whether you're a nose guard or whether you're a corner, we're teaching the same thing to every single player on our team. To be more specific with the linebackers, a few things that I stress with those guys are, a tight straight. So it's kind of like what Skip said with the push-pull, where, I got to get over a block on an inside tight flow read where I got to press and I got a tight straight to get over the top. So we'll teach tight straight on inside flow. We'll teach reduce and rip on fast outside flow. We're just going to reduce our pads and take away the blocking surface for the offensive lineman or receiver, whoever it is coming out to get us. So we'll teach them to reduce and rip. And then we'll teach a counter. So, if we got to rock back on a block or a counter inside, we're going to club rip and come back across the face. We don't teach any arm over stuff. I don't, to my guys. Everything for us is, in our pass rush moves and all that is all, club rip, skate, everything's underneath. But those would be really the three main specific linebacker ones would be tight straight, reduce and rip, and counter club rip for the linebackers.
Good stuff, Coach. Coach Coop, DBs for you, and maybe as you go, you gave a great clinic on defending the run out of the spreads. Maybe you could also just talk a little bit about the run fits for the safeties and the corners, and then kind of how they defeat blocks on their way to the ball.
Right. So like Kempy said, we're going to teach all of our defensive players to take on blocks the same way. Defensive backs, the drills that I would do in camp would be the same things that I would do if I was coaching the defensive line. So we're gonna start in a 6 point and get back on our feet, and we're gonna separate. And so we want to attack, separate, and pull jerk again, like Kempy said, and that's going to be it. And so the difference with the defensive backs is you're just not going to work it as much. I mean, the defensive line's going to do that every time, every defensive indie. The defensive backs, you just have other things you have to work on. So we're gonna work on it once in camp, maybe once the second week, and then hit it as necessary during the year. But I think with the defensive backs, the most important thing is those guys, if they're run support defenders, they got to be aggressive. Like the things that I see that are worse for defensive backs is when they sit and they're passive and they don't want to go attack the blocker. And so defensive backs got to know that if he is a primary run support guy, if it's a corner in cloud or if it's a safety in either shooter, sky, whatever you call it, those guys need to attack right now. And being aggressive will be better than being perfect with your technique. I mean, you just can't expect a 165-pound defensive back to be able to be perfect with his hands all the time. You can't expect him to separate all the time. He's going to use his athletic ability sometimes and try to just quickly skate off that block. And so if you're aggressive, it will solve all your other problems. And so getting into what Hath just said, we're going to make sure that we teach our run supports to our secondary guys. It's a very important part of our defense is our secondary guys knowing who has the run support, who's turning the run back inside, who's going to be the alley player, who's going to be the backside alley player. We're gonna drill that every single day during camp. We're gonna hit it as we need it, probably every other week, every third week during the season. Corners got to learn how to play cloud. They got to learn that, again, if they're playing cloud and they get run at them, if they get a toss or they get a quarterback sweep out of the shotgun, or they get option and they're the run support guy, they have got to be aggressive. They've got to attack a block. And as I said, I think as a defensive backs coach that will solve all the problems for a corner in cloud. A safety, if he's in a shoot or a sky, just if you got a rolled up safety, like a strong safety cover 3, or an overhang player, if he's getting a block at him, which might be a fullback or someone leading out on him, a running back, if they're running quarterback sneak, that guy's got to attack the blocker. And so what we teach our guys in that case is attack the blocker at the same angle he's attacking you. Get pad under pad, and then try to explode the block. And so again, be aggressive, knowing you're the support guy, go attack the block, force the run to where back inside to where we want it.
Coach, just quickly, if you could cover that, because I really liked it and the way you taught it. The backside corner, the last guy. What was the terminology you used with that guy on his responsibility on run plays away?
Right. So we call it a save player. And so when the corner, whether he's in a cloud situation or whether he's in a quarter situation, once he realizes that it's a running play away from him, he is going to totally slow down. He is going to actually let the backside receiver, if that backside receiver is stalking him, he's going to let that receiver come back in front of him and actually get in position to block him. Because I want that backside corner to keep all 21 other men in front of him. That way he's never hit with a reverse or reverse pass. Back in, I don't know when it was, 2009, 2010, Portland hit us with a reverse pass. Our corner took off across the field, and they leaked a guy out backside, and they ran reverse. And we took care of the reverse, but a guy's open down the field for a touchdown. And so we want the backside corner to always keep all other players in front of him until the ball crosses the line of scrimmage. Once the ball crosses the line of scrimmage, now he's going to take an angle to make a game-saving touchdown, across the field, deep angle, pylon, aiming point, that type of thing. So we always want that corner. And when we're in our team drills, that's the coaching point for him. He does not have to get to the ball. And so, again, the point I made in my other clinic is I don't want the backside corner. I don't want the backside safety who we call it a back alley, which is responsible for counter cutbacks, reverses. I don't want those guys getting to the ball. So I always got to tell those defensive backs, when I'm yelling, get to the ball, get to the ball, get to the ball, it doesn't mean you. You have to do your job. And because, it's like corners, they're some of your best players, right? Your corners are typically your great athletes. They're multi-sport athletes. They're going to do whatever you want as a coach. If you're yelling, get to the ball, they're going to get to the ball. I have to tell them personally, Jacob, I don't want you getting to the ball. I want you on a saved path and you run away. It's okay. I want to see you start on that deep path, whistle blows, and get ready for the next play. So that's kind of how we teach our backside defensive backs.
Awesome, Coach. I know you guys are all a little bit different in your scheme, so I want to get into some scheme stuff now, and we'll kind of go around the horn here and just talk about it. If you're going to play, a spread offense that's going to give you 2x2 and 3x1, what's your base alignment going to be in your odd front? What maybe is your favorite coverage against 2x2, and then maybe how do you adjust to the 3x1? So I'll start down there with Coach Jones on that one.
Well, against spread teams, we're basically a 3-4. After watching Coach Cooper's presentation on stopping the run and the pass, and his front were very similar. In the front, we a 2-by-2. We would like to press our corners. Unfortunately, we don't always have the ability to do so. So coverage-wise, if they're in a 2-by-2, we're going to be in our base 3-4, depending on our what we want to do with our stunts. Our base coverage will probably be a cover 4. We're going to play quarters. If they go a 3-by-1, we might have 1 or 2 different cover 3s, whether we're going to squat the corner, whether we're going to roll down the safety and play a more traditional cover 3 with the safety coming down. That depends also on what they like to do run-wise. One of the things we have, and I think I always have to keep in mind, it's not what I can draw up and do, it's what my players can do, both physically and mentally. And, like many of you guys, we have kids that are playing both ways. We're a small team. I might only get 16 kids, 17 kids that might see time on the defensive side of the ball. And so they're also overloaded with Coach Turner's offensive playbook that it's ever expanding. The offensive guys, as the year goes on, next thing you know, it's 3 pages and 8 font. And so I have learned that oftentimes simpler is better for our kids because it allows them to play fast and limit adjustments. So if they come out in 3-by-1, guys, this is what we want to be in, and just call it. If they're in 2-by-2, we'll just stay in quarters unless, we have a certain blitz and we have to go man or something like that. But we try to keep it as simple as possible. A couple of years ago when we had Tucker Buzzle and Reese Neisler and those guys, they had a very high football IQ. We could do all kinds of things to try to minimize what Coach Hathaway does.
You did a good job at it too, Coach, man. You got us. Those guys were good players, and you guys are well schemed in those games for sure, man. You did a great job. Coach Kezal, we'll go over to you next, man.
Yeah, the players made me good.
Yeah, I think, when we're defending, I think it depends upon what a team's trying to do out of it. When they're in a 2-by-2 set, is it primary pass? Is it primarily run? Is it, down in distance, tendencies? We have the ability, we're gonna install cover 2. That's our first coverage we put in. We're gonna get really good at that. If it's a passing team and we want to play coverage, we're going to play cover 2. We're going to be really aggressive, redirecting routes. Our kids are going to understand where the weaknesses are in that coverage. And then obviously if we're playing teams that maybe they run more the tight end side, we may be we'll break the field in half. We'll play cover 2 one way. We'll play quarters to the other side so that we get that safety support, that extra player in the box to the tight end to take away the run game. Those are primarily our 2 coverages versus 2-by-2 sets, and then we'll play straight man. If we want to create a 7-man box with our odd set, we can certainly play a straight man. Versus 3-by-1, same thing. What are they, what are they doing on the 3 receiver side? What are they doing on the 1 receiver side? And based upon tendencies, it's 3-by-1 with the tight end of the 3-by-1 set. Our base is we're gonna be in an Oakley front. We're going to roll the cover 3 that way. Kind of our day 1 adjustment and play cover 3 away we'll drop that in, and we'll play, you know, a quarter, half to the backside, or you know, and that way we bracket that one receiver. But then we have the ability, you know, to play straight cover 2 to that. You know, if we get in our nickel, we have the ability to kind of X out certain receivers. Lance talked about that in the earlier session about, you know, Xing out a receiver and still playing cover 2. We can play straight man and you know, cone off, or actually, you know, we call it cone if we're gonna double a certain receiver. So you know, it bases upon what we're gonna see down in distance. Obviously, you know, I think our base coverages are going to be determined by, you know, we're going to stop the run. You know, first down, we're probably not going to be in a straight cover 2 on first down in our league. You know, we're going to be some type of quarters where we're getting that extra player in the box to defend the run.
Awesome. Coach Bond?
I mean, for us, I mean, it's a lot of the same things. We've played, I mean, it really depends on what we have for personnel. You know, it changes year to year, obviously. I mean, this past year we had 4 great defensive backs. We could play man pretty much anytime we wanted without worry. You know, we've done some against 2x2. We've done some quarters some years. We're just better at quarters than we are at 2. If it's a tight end, you know, there's a tight end involved in the 2x2, we usually always cover 3. We'll roll that safety up to get that extra run support. 3x1's our first adjustment that we put in from day one in the summer is we're going to roll the safety down and play quarter, half, and the backside end's going to drop in the flat if he needs to. You know, then obviously down and distance has a lot to do with it. We will go, we call it cover 8, where we're just going to rush 3. We're going to drop 8. Both ends are going to go in the flat. We're going to play quarters behind it, maybe send a backer to get that extra rusher. You know, it's pretty standard to what all these other guys have said so far. A lot of it's based on personnel too. I mean, as far as our favorite coverage each year is all about what we have, especially at safety. You know, sometimes there's been some years the last few years we had a great strong safety for 4 years, and so we were real comfortable playing cover 3. We had good free safety and a great strong safety that helped us in the run, and you know we just based everything off from our scouts and down to distances and formations and things like that. Trying to get kids in the best position to succeed.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Kempton?
Yeah, so along the lines of what Coach Kezal said, is what type of spread team are you is going to determine what our attack is going to be against you. So if you're, you know, a spread team that's going to run the ball, we're going to dial up some heavy run blitzes. If you're more of a spread team that's going to throw the ball, we're going to, you know, dial up more pass pressures based off protection. As far as 2x2 and 3x1, you know, we do a bunch of things. But if I, you know, in the ideal world, I'd choice it, and we play what we're a 3-3 stack team, so we're different than a lot of you guys that are 3-4 teams. So we're 1 high almost all the time. So to handle the 4 verticals out of a 2x2 set, we play a version of a quarters coverage when we bring pressure. So we're bringing 5-man pressure, you know, a down safety or an outside linebacker, as you would call it. We call them down safeties, a down safety and an inside linebacker, and screw the free down, and then play, you know, post technique with the corners on the number 1 receivers, play basically robber technique on the number 2s where they're reading off the number 2s. For, you know, vertical, you clamp it out, you drive on it, block, you're a run support guy now. So it's, you know, a lot of the quarters concepts. It's our way of being a 1 high team to be able to handle the 4 verticals out of 2x2. And if we got 3x1, basically what we're doing is we're going to stay in to the trip side. We're going to stay in that quarters for us ice concept where we're going to play over we play post technique with a corner. We're going to play over number 2, same exact reads, and we're going to eliminate number 3 wherever 3 is with the free safety and lock him man. So it gives us our overhang player to the weak side. It keeps our ice rules, our quarters concepts to the 2 detached, and we get our free safety down on number 3. And if that's a tight end and he blocks, we got an extra run guy there. So, you know, kind of that version of that. For us.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Capone?
I'm a 3-3 stat guy, so a lot of what Kempy says is true. I'm going to go on from a different bit. Like you said, we're going to design our coverages and our pressures based on what you want to do. Again, if you're a spread team and you're an option, whether it's gun read or triple, or even in sense with the RPOs, we want to change up the reads as much as we can for the quarterback. You know, change who's taking the inside part of the option, change who's taking the quarterback, change who's on pitch, and adjust our coverage accordingly to make him a little bit uncomfortable and try to get the ball on the ground. That's really the biggest thing. But again, identifying, you know, if you're in the gun, are you a power run team? You know, are you a jet in those complementary plays, or do you want to throw the ball? Again, like the other guy said, a lot of it's based on down and distance, but we're going to blitz, whether it's one or two guys, and try to take away what you do best out of those formations.
Coop, you want to wrap that one up?
Yeah, sure. So everybody knows we're a 3-4 front team. We want to be able to have both our outside linebackers be able to be pass and run defenders. We typically will find one that's a better pass defender and one that's a better run defender, and you know we'll give those guys more specific responsibilities. But we're going to be in 2 safety defense the vast majority of the time. We can play 1 safety defenses, but it's not our preference. We want to be in a 2 safety defense because I think that gives you the most flexibility in what you do as far as both defending the pass and the run and the things you can do out of it. So, and then like everybody else said, you got to, you know, as far as what are you going to do versus 2x2 and 3x1, it's what the offense is going to present to you as problems. I think the one thing that I'll add is the offense running spread with a tight end? Are they running with 2 tight ends? Those are the type of guys that can kind of mess with your defense a little bit more if they're long, you know, if they're tall tight ends, if they can run well, they can be receivers and blockers. And those are the guys that will really dictate to your defense kind of the things that you have to do to adjust. You know, if it's going to be a 4 wide type of operation, you know, we're gonna stay in cover 2 the majority of the time. We might screw a safety down and play quarter half or half quarter. But generally, you know, you're not threatened in the box with that type of dude, that type of tight end guy that can really work over your defense. So with tight ends in the game, you got to involve a safety. You got to get a safety down in the run game, and how you do that is really you know, what your preference is on as your defensive scheme, whether it's you know, your boundary safety or your field safety, as far as what do you think you need to take away for the offense. So, and that's really what we're going to look at first is number one, we want to be sound versus the pass. We don't want to give you anything easy versus the pass. And then second, where can they hurt you with a run? Do they have a guy that you need to worry about with your defense to get a safety down in the box? Because any type of 7-man front, you're a gap short in your run game. So you better, if a team can run the ball, you better get a safety close to the box, or you're going to get gashed in the run game.
Awesome, Coach. I'm going to hit you guys up with kind of some scheme specific stuff now. I'm going to kind of move around and give you guys some different questions here. Coach Jones, I'm going to start with you down there. You're getting ready to game plan for a triple option team. You know, either a double slot under center, like, you know, Navy style triple, or you know, maybe a pistol triple team, or even a zone read team that might bring some motion in the backfield and do it that way. How are you going to prep up your defense for that, and scheme-wise, how are you going to adjust?
Okay, well, the first thing, you know, it's going to be assignment football, and for high school kids, you know, that can be difficult. As you scout them, you have to decide, you know, sometimes, you know, what medicine are you going to take? Who, if you had your druthers, is going to carry the football? You know, if they have some bruising fullback who's going to, you know, even if you do your great job and they're giving him on the dive on veer, inside veer, and he's picking up 4 or 5 yards just because he's a stud, well, we got to find some way to take him away. We want to make, as Skip said, different reads. We don't want the same read every time. So let's say it's like a DeMail veer or a zone read. We might take that overhang and bring him right down the line of backside. So it's a sure, that quarterback's going to think he's got a keep read, and we're going to loop the backer, inside backer out around, and he's got the cue to change that. I firmly believe it's an under center team. We want to force the issue. We want to force the quarterback to have to make the read as soon as possible. So we want our defenders, who, let's say our overhang player, our DN, whoever has the quarterback, we want him to attack the quarterback. We're playing high school football players. And so we want to attack them. My biggest fear, I remember we were playing Tufts when we were at New Hampton, and they were an option team, and man, we were doing it well, and all of a sudden there went the tight end right down the field, and the quarterback stood up and threw it to him. And that was an easy 6. So one of the things that you have to be conscious and drill with your players is, they're not only stopping, the option, but they have to be, you guys on the backside, have to be cognizant and be and read their keys well. You don't want to give up the big play. And then you got to figure out, who you want to carry the ball if all else fails. Usually we want to defend inside out. And we tend to be a spill team anyway. And then hopefully we can cage the pitch guy with our corner and our safety.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Kempton, going to you next. You're getting ready to game plan for the team with the mobile quarterback who can run around and make some plays and extend plays. And, is the dual threat, the run pass option type of guy. How are you game planning that, and what are you emphasizing with your kids, and how are you adjusting your schemes?
Yeah, so like a bunch of the guys have said, with the quarterback that's mobile and athletic like that, we want to give him as many different reads off of the edge that we possibly can. So, we're gonna give pressure to the side of the back. We'll run 2 off the edge. We'll have a combination of outside and inside pressures, to the side of the back. We'll X blitz it off the edge. One of the things that I firmly believe in, we don't get a lot of RPO against us, just because, I guess you'd have to ask those guys why, but I think because the unpredictability of what we do, that, one snap we could be in bear and playing man, and there's really no RPO. And we're bringing pressure from, the perimeter so much that we tell our guys there's really no RPO. You have an assignment, and that's what you're going to do. But we want to make sure, one of the things with a quarterback, with spread teams is what type of runner is he, what type of thrower is he. So, pick your poison, but we're going to game plan everything around stopping the quarterback, giving him as many different reads as we can to the side of the back, away from the back, to the field, from the boundary. Just for a high school kid, if he gets that many different looks, you can draw it all up on the board as a coach and, give him the playbook. But when the bullets are firing and you get the deer in the headlight look with the quarterback, that's a pretty good feeling defensively that you got him. So we're just never going to give you the same look 2 snaps in a row. And that's our philosophy, with a mobile quarterback.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Bonnevie, going to slide over to you now. You're getting a wing T team. They're going to line up traditional tight end wing with the offset halfback away from the wing. They'll give you some near as well, where they cross that halfback over, and then they'll give you some one back in the Delaware set. What are you working against that, and what are you scheming up?
Well, for us with the wing T, it's the the most important thing we emphasize all week is reading the keys, right? I mean, if you're not going to do that, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot. So I mean, we stress that. This past year, we were playing Wells. I think it was week 6, and we had spread teams all the way until we were playing them. And we started working a small package of wing T plays in our script, like the second week of preseason, I think. And they were in there the whole season until we got to them. So, but I mean, we're gonna read our keys, like I said. We're pretty much going to be cover 2, tight end wing. We're going to be cover 2 on that side, quarters on the back. Always try to get that extra run defender up there when we can. And just depending on what they do well, trying to stop what their best play is, and then just go in succession through the checklist. If this is not going to work, what are they going to do next? Making sure we're always sound on waggle. So they can't hit you for the big pass play after you've seen Buck sweep, 8 times in a row. So we're just gonna, just wrap it up, talk about the reading the keys, and that's about it.
Awesome. Coach Kezal, going to come down to you next. You're facing a team that's a big jet sweep team. You're going to get jet sweep. You're going to get the power read off it with the Q read the edge as well. A team with a lot of perimeter speed. Running quarterback and a good play action game. How you going to scheme up against that?
Hopefully we control the ball the whole game. But I think we're gonna obviously by formation we're gonna line up secondary wise. When you're playing a jet sweep team, you better work crack replace. I mean, that's something that we do. We start from day one. Teams know we're gonna have that safety down the box, the extra defender. So we've got to work that crack and replace. And some years we get better at, and others this year we weren't great at it, just the personnel we had. So, but you got to be able to do that. I think on a corner, I think our option responsibilities will kind of fall in with our safety and our outside linebackers work together all the time. So if that 9 shade is getting a down block, like a power read, he's going to step inside. The safety's going to fit over the top of him. So that will put put the 9 shade on the quarterback. The safety will fit over the top on the pitch or the jet or whatever, the D gap responsibility. If he gets if our 9 shade gets a reach block, our safety's going to fit downhill. Now with the reach block, that 9 shade becomes a D gap player, whoever that is, and our safety would fit inside of that. So we it's something that we work from day one with our scheme. So hopefully we're able to kind of take care of those schemes with that. If they're a big C gap player, obviously we'll do some C gap stunts. We'll do some cannon stunts with our inside linebacker. Just to give them a different look there, kind of a twist, the tackle in the inside linebacker. And then obviously you've got to be ready for the play action pass off, all those actions. You've got to make sure that your safeties and your corners' eyes don't leave too early, and they make sure they get their read and don't get beat over the top.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Capone, going to you next. You're getting the power run team. So maybe a team that runs a lot of 2-back or they're in gun with the tailback and the H-back. A team like Coop who can just run the counter scheme and the power scheme. What are you doing against that?
You better get this right, Capone.
First off, we're probably going to blitz that's the scheme. We're going to come off the edge and blitz the back. If they're going to motion their H-back or line them up on one side, and that's a good key for us. We're going to bring our down safety off the edge and play games with our 5 shade and our down safety or our 5 shade and our stack linebacker. Again, change that up. We want to make sure they're trying to run power or gap scheme, that double team block by that tight end and tackle ends up a single block. Okay, that's really the key. Okay, and again, I think that's going to help us and have our Mike linebacker scrapes over the top and fills it in that way. But again, just being aggressive and understanding what they're trying to do with their scheme and being able to attack it either out of your base front and then obviously have a couple of change-ups. But I think attacking that H-back, I think, is really important. Again,
Looks like Coach Kempton approves.
we're a spill team, always were. And we're on the backside, they're trying to run counter tray or something like that. We're gonna try to latch on. Our big thing was either as a 5 or as a nose guard. I want to get my hands on that tackle, and I don't want to let him release inside. I got to get hands on. If he does, I'm going to twist my hips and I'm going to bend. I see Puller coming at me. I'm going to blow his ass up. I'm going to take his inside thigh board and I'm going to blow him up. As simple as that. I'm not going to try to necessarily make a tackle. Blow him up. And I'm going to work my hips back up the field and make that thing bounce. We want to make that tailback stutter his feet. Because if he hits it downhill, he's going to crease us.
That was a great pressure that we used to run versus Trinity, even though they still waxed our ass. We gave them some fits with, the H-back, buzzing the H-back back and forth and inserting him on power and bringing him back across on, split zone and on, counter, H counter, bringing him back is we tracked that H-back and we had a blitz that we called it a back pressure. And wherever that H-back went, we went after him with either, our edge guy or a combination of an edge guy to the inside. But we just tracked the back, and that was really beneficial for us against those guys that use that H-back a lot.
Awesome.
Whatever.
Thanks, Coach. Coop, coming to you next. We're seeing a lot more of the RPO game, with teams in the spread, with these run pass options. Anything change with your philosophy when a team has that threat, or how have you adjusted in the last year or two with more teams going to that?
Yeah, so you can handle it a couple different ways. I think number one, your safeties have to understand what an RPO is. They have to understand what their role is. So we're going to try to play, if the team's an RPO team, we're going to try to play a lot of quarters. That way, if they're going to try to take a number 2 receiver and try to get him down the field, we've got a safety there. Or take a tight end or something like that. We're gonna have a safety there. So safeties playing quarter coverage is one way we can handle it without having to go to man-to-man coverage, which we don't like to do. I mean, we'll play man, but we're not going to play man just because you're an RPO team. We're gonna play what we want to play. Which is going to be a heavy dose of zone. So we got to figure out how to play those things in zone coverage and not just revert to man. But safeties and quarters, that's one way you can handle it. And then the second, we're going to train our inside backers to defend the pass. That's a day one teach for those guys. They're not just going to be downhill fillers. They're going to have pass responsibility. So the way we work at what we call our stud, which is our traditional Mike linebacker, he's gonna have to be able to play pass if he has a number 3 receiver. He's gonna have to play pass first, and then our will, which is traditionally more like a will linebacker, is gonna have to worry about number 2 receiver to his side. So if those guys get threats that are receiving threats, they're gonna have to play those receiving threats. We'll handle the run game with stuff with our front, whether we have to slant our front or we have to do something like that. We'll adjust that way, but our linebackers are going to have to learn how to play pass coverage. They do it all summer long, 7-on-7. I mean, they're playing cover 2 all summer long. They're learning how to play pass. We work them in pre-practice every Wednesday during the season, which is our defensive practice. Those guys are working on their drops. They're working on their reroutes. If they have a threat that might become a pass receiver, they've got to honor that threat, because what an RPO team wants you to do, it wants you to fill with the run, because the pass is a bigger play. So we want to make sure our linebackers are able to play pass threats. And I liked what Coach Ryan at Maine said the other night. He said, we're not going to put linebackers in conflict. Those guys are going to know, are they an RPO player or are they a downhill run filler? I think in a 3-4, one of those guys is always going to be a downhill run filler. If you spread us, one of those guys will be more of a pass RPO guy. So you won't get them both RPOs if you're a spread RPO team, and you won't get them both downhill run fillers. You'll get one or the other. And so we're not, obviously we want to mix that up with what we do defensively, so the offense can't figure it out. But we're not going to put those guys in conflict. They're gonna know pre-snap what their primary responsibility is. So that's how we handle it.
Awesome, fellas. I'm going to kind of bounce around now, and same thing. I'm going to kind of give you each a little bit of just some different things formationally that cause some people a hard time, and kind of ask you how you adjust. Going to start with Coach Jones down there. You're getting a team, either a wing T team or a spread team, that's giving you a lot of tight end wing. How are you going to adjust to that out of that 3-4?
Hope our offense scores a lot. We had a hard time dealing with Wells. Ultimately, we're going to probably have to walk down. If they're really hurting us, we're going to have to walk down a safety and, almost look like an old 52 monster type team. We're going to have to get them into the run game if they're really hurting us, especially, in that C gap. We will, of course, also, I'm gonna really work on our end, our R, which is our outside linebacker. He's going to be up, and he's going to be really trying to get into that tight end, get his hands on him, and drive that guy's ass right into the C gap and not let him go. So if they're trying to run a, buck sweep or whatever, I want him to create a mess there. I don't want his ass to get kicked out into the stands and buy a hot dog. And if we need to, we'll drop a safety down. Against Wells, I had 10 guys in the box, and I would have brought the 2 bus drivers if they allowed me, but it didn't work.
Kempy, how about out of the 3-3 stack? What are you doing to tight end wing?
So the first thing we're doing is we're going to pressure inside, outside on the tight end wing. So we're going to bring a down safety outside of the wing. We're going to walk an inside, a stack linebacker up inside of the wing, and we're going to take the extra gap with that guy and get the ball spilled out to a blitzer coming off the edge. So that's we're not always going to get it, but that would be our number 1 adjustment. Number 2 would be we want to try to free up our down safety / outside linebacker to spill the D gap. And what I believe in that is I think you need to make that read for the offense as cloudy as possible. So I don't like putting him inside the wing because it gives an angle for the wing to block him right now, even if it's a 1-iron. I don't like him outside because I don't think defensive players are good enough, especially if that's a pretty good guy at the wing, to be able to compress that gap. He's gonna get kicked out. So we're gonna play that guy alignment-wise at the heels of the defensive line, head up on the wing, but on the snap of the ball, he's going to attack the inside half of the wing. So he's going to be a D-gap defender, but we're not going to, by alignment, we're not going to give you an angle inside or outside right away for you to be able to say, we're going to down block him or we're going to kick him out. We want to make that read as cloudy as possible, but we're in everything that we do defensively, we're going to get the ball spilled from the inside out. So we're going to attack the inside half. Obviously, when you do that, if you're going to bring him, you got to bring the free safety down. So we've played a coverage. It's like a 2 invert where we're going to play the corners in the half field and bring the free safety down to the tight end wing. So even if it was wing trips, which is the biggest pain in the ass, to a wing trip set, we're going to bring the free safety down. And we give him free access to the skies, but the free and our weak side down safety, they're going to work to get underneath the number 1 receivers. Their aiming point is going to be the inside hip, and then you got different reactions to routes. But from a base standpoint, you're going to play half field with the corners. You're going to buzz those guys inside of the number 1 receivers, and then for us, the Sam and the Outlaw, our 2 stack linebackers would be seam droppers, and the Mike would be a hold a hook dropper, and it frees the rover for us, the down safety, to be able to spill that D gap with the free safety sitting right over the top to be able to fit outside of that if he gets blocked down inside. So for us, we really have two ways. We're going to blitz it inside, outside, and then we're going to free up the down safety and make that read cloudy and get the free safety involved.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. Coach Kezal, going to come to you next. Tackle over, unbalanced. How are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, unbalanced. We're gonna shift the front to the unbalanced. So we would go from the 5 shade to the unbalanced would stay the same. Our 0 would move to a 1. Our backside 5 would become a 3. So we shift the front to unbalanced. Secondary wise, if we're playing any type of wing, whether it's unbalanced or we're either going to be cloud if it's a regular wing tee. If it's unbalanced, we're going to sky it off so that we get that extra player to the unbalanced set. Tight end wing, our 5 shade, he's gonna, he's worrying about the trap and the double team. Our 9 shade, we don't even have him worry about the wing. He is playing. He's still just reading the tight end for his release because if he gets a reach block, he's going to work up the field. If he gets an inside release, he's thinking some type of belly X, so he's going to step down. And then only if he feels the wing pressure does he try to work up the field. So we tell him really late. If you feel that wing come down, try to work up the field, and we'll take care of the buck and any of those outside plays with our secondary. And depending upon whether it's base, it would be a cloud. If it's an unbalanced set, it would be sky with the 2 safeties doing it.
Do you handle it differently if it's tight end over and he's covered as opposed to tackle over? So when you with the tackle over, the tight end still eligible on the back, but with the tight end over, he's covered. Do you treat those any differently?
Well, no, I mean, really, if it's a 3 surface side, I think once the formation, I think, we're going to be either, quarters. If there's no wing, if there was a wing, it's either going to be cloud or sky, one or the other, depending upon how the rest of the formation looks. But if it's unbalanced with a tight end over, but the rest of the formation is spread, we're probably going to be something like quarters coverage. Or man, if it's a run set that they're using.
Right. Skip, how about you in the 3-3? How are you handling unbalance there?
Beer, I think it's 2 different things. Like, one, if it's just straight tackle over, depending on what they've got on the backside, they've got a tight end and at that tackle spot, another wideout. We did anything, we'd probably just boss our linebackers over and keep our D line the same. If they went full tackle over, you got a 2-man surface on the backside. Now we'd have the ability to kick the front. I think that's a game plan thing for us. What you're trying to do, we may be able to do much stuff with coverage. Get, like Kempy said before, getting our free safety down and free up our rover. So we had a couple of different options. Depends on what you're trying to do out of the unbalanced. Rather just one stand.
I'll go back to both you and Kevin. Who communicates that for you guys on the field? Like when they come out in an unbalanced set and you've got to start moving guys, maybe adjusting the front or adjusting the coverage. Who's making those calls for you guys?
For us, the secondary, our front is going to be based on our secondary, whatever our coverage is. So, I think we kind of work from the back forward. So whatever we get for a call secondary wise, will determine it determines how our outside linebackers are going to play. And then the inside linebacker will control the inside 5 if we're in our odd front. So he'll control the 3 down, the 2 linebackers. They'll move those guys where they need to be. And then the outside linebackers in the secondary will work together in the secondary.
Coach Capone, how about for you?
You Mike linebacker. We make over right or over left. That's what it was in the game plan that week. Or not, we obviously have to be our free safety. Pretty simple.
Yep.
Not real complicated.
All right, Coach Bond, going to you next. You're getting a team that gives you a lot of empty. 5 wide, a lot of screen game, a lot of quick game. How are you taking your 3-4 and adjusting it to that?
Well, against empty, we pretty much go cover 8. We're going to play quarters in the back, drop the ends into the flats, rush 3. Like I said, it's, sometimes we'll send a backer, have the remaining backers by the quarterback. And, usually when we get that, I mean, obviously, a lot of times the down in the distance is a big key factor in that. A lot of teams that we play, if they go empty, it's a passing down. So we're just always going to just try to make sure we got, all the zones covered and make the quarterback beat us.
You want to talk a little bit, I don't want to give too much away, but you want to talk a little bit about what we did with York in terms of the guys up front the first time we played them?
When we play, one of the things that we'll do in our cover 8 sometimes, and we did this against Wells pretty much, extensively, was we'll take our base defensive ends, we put them down as the tackles, and then we'll bring in 2 guys that are better cover guys to be the outside backers, so that we still get our good pass rush. We get the guys that we want rushing the passer that have some mobility. You're not rushing 2 big DTs in the nose. And then you got 2 guys, that in the flats that are comfortable doing that. So against York, that was, they chuck it every play, and that was pretty much what our base defense was. We came right out in that and pretty much stayed in it the whole game.
Coach Coop, that kind of segues into what I want to ask you. Third downs, nickel situations, how are you going to adjust your personnel and what are you going to kind of use for coverages in those third mediums, third and longs?
Right. So as far as personnel wise, we have to be ready to stick with our base group. Now, if we have guys that can play nickel, then all the better. Right. So if you have a third corner or maybe an athletic safety that you want to bring in the game as your nickel, then awesome. Some years we have that. We were fortunate to have it last year. Other years we don't. And then I think the next thing is in nickel situations is what do you have for rushers? Like, do you have a guy that can be an edge rusher for you? And that's the guy you obviously want to get in there as a rush guy. So you're really beholden to what you have as personnel as far as any type of nickel package. As far as scheme wise, you got to be able to figure out, where does the offense go to almost exclusively third down pass. If whatever that is for us, our primary coverage is probably going to be 2. And we're going to use our outside backers to disrupt the seam routes as much as possible. Our inside backers will have to be ready to do that too. We're going to try to get after you with a 4-man pass rush the vast majority of the time. We'll twist our guys, especially if we have guys that can do it. And so that's how we're going to attack you. Most of the time, we're going to throw in an occasional pressure, but primarily we're going to play sound coverage, take away your easy throws, make you have to beat us with difficult throws. But again, I think the what you do on third down really is, where you got to figure out where does that offense break from being a 50-50 run mix on, say, third and medium downs to we're going to throw the ball, maybe run a Q draw or a trap, primary like third and long runs, right? So you got to figure out where does that break for the opponent that you're playing, and then adjust accordingly.
Awesome. Coach Jones, Coach Kezal, Coach Coop, you guys use a lot of cover too. Just preference with the corners. Do you like playing off a little bit and using kind of a shuffle technique, or do you prefer to be up and using more of a funnel technique if you have the personnel for it? Coach Jones, start with you.
I'd prefer to press. Unfortunately, we don't always have kids that have the ability to do that and do it well. So, in reality, we tend to play off and be a shuffle with our quarter. If we have the players that have, and it's about confidence, I think. Sometimes you take a kid and put them up there that they get nervous a little bit. But if we have them, we want to take away that. We want to take away the quick slant. We want to be physical with those guys, if at all possible.
Kezal, how about you?
Yeah, generally we're an off. We're sitting, we're squatting 5 yards off the ball, really trying to redirect that number one receiver inside, not allowing that number one receiver to get outside of our squat corner. We like to have his eyes in the backfield. Especially with the cloud support that you're getting there, it helps with the run. Obviously we don't want him to get run off, thinking it's pass. When it's a run play, then you have no support, depending upon your formation and stuff. We will to a 3-by-1 on the backside. In our base, if we're in cover 2, we will solo that, where basically we will put them up and bump a single receiver to that side, just because we have a force player, just by the way our defense is aligned. We have a force player to that side, so we can bump there. But generally, if we're in cover 2, we're playing off, squatting. Trying to funnel that number one receiver inside, making sure that he keeps his eyes inside. The corner can keep his eyes inside, keep everything inside, and certainly help with the run game.
Awesome. Coach Coop, how about you?
So we're teaching basically 2 techniques with our corners in cover 2. They will be off, much like Kevin just said. We're going to play them generally at 5 yards, maybe at 4. But really not any closer unless the kid's special enough to get up there and be a little bit tighter. But we're gonna play shuffle at 5. Don't let the receiver outside. Force an inside release, turn, open, start to sink, get your eyes back inside to number 2 and number 3. That's our base technique. But I think what our guys are more comfortable doing most of the time is more of a 2-read technique, which they will open at the snap of the ball and start shuffling, getting a little depth, not too much, maybe at about 7 yards or so, maybe 8 tops, staying outside. So the tough thing in that technique is, once they open and turn inside, do they let the receiver get to their back, which we don't want to have happen in cover 2. So the coaching point, if that's the way they like to play it, and I'm all for it for the kids that want to do that, is that they have to be careful about giving up an outside release. They're going to have to kind of hedge back to the sidelines a little bit to not let number 1 outside them. But the advantages, I think, for that is kid gets a little more depth. He can keep things in front of him. A good athlete can kind of see and read and decipher the play, especially a kid that's a knowledgeable player, can see what's going on. He's not really doing anything that's going to make the safety freak out by getting guys run up on him, especially a guy outside down the sidelines, which can make it really tough for the safety, as we all know. And then he can see inside. He can see what's happening. He's number 2 running some sort of flat cut, where we're going to tell him if number 2 is running a flat or a bubble or anything up to the outside, he's jumping that right now. So the kids that get good at it, it almost turns into more like a 2 trap that they can go get that number 2 receiver if the team's going to attack you with like a fade flat or a fade shoot route or something like that. So those are the 2 techniques that we're coaching up in cover 2 with our corners.
Awesome. But before I get to the last question, we're going to talk game planning and just game day calls. I'll get each one of you guys a question to finish. But before I get to that, I want to ask Kempy and Mark. I'll go Kempy first. But same question for both of you guys. Do you flip-flop guys on defense? Like your down safeties, how do you deploy those guys? Mark in the 3-4 with your outside backers and your inside backers, and your safeties, just talk to me a little bit about how that works in your defense. Kempy, you go first.
All right. So from day one, when we deploy, we're a field-based team. So we use the uprights as our landmark. We don't use the hash mark. We use the upright. So if the ball's on or outside the upright, then that's considered boundary and hash. So it eliminates the middle of the field stuff where the ball can only be in between the uprights for a strong call for us. So we get deployed to the field unless the ball is in between the uprights. When we deploy from day one, it's our rover, our viper, strong side defensive end, and our Sam linebacker. Those 3 guys travel together to the call. Our anchor defensive end, weak side defensive end, our will and our outlaw, they go away from the call to the boundary. So that's it from day one. We're always going to deploy our Rover and Will field and boundary because those two cats are different type of players. We're always going to deploy the Sam and the Outlaw field and boundary because those two cats are different type of players. We've gone back and forth with our Viper and our Anchor. Skip did a great job with our guys at Bates. If we saw a lot of we had Tyler Keel, who was, much better playing to a 3-man surface, and certain kids better to a 2-man surface. So we wouldn't flip those guys deployment-wise. We may go tight and open with them. We may go left and right with them. So we've done a bunch of different things with our defensive ends. But our Rover and our Sam and our Will and our Outlaw, those guys are always going to go field and boundary. As far as the corners go, gone round and round. I mean, you can go field and boundary. Right now, we go left and right. Unless you got, really two different type of kids to make sense to go field and boundary, then you do. We've done that. But right now, we're just left and right with those guys. So that the nose and the mic, they can't screw it up. They line up in the middle of the field all the time. So that's what we do.
Coach Bonnevie, how about the 3-4?
Yeah, so we have there are 3 guys that travel together always. Up front, we pretty much stay. Our DT stay on the right or the left. Sometimes based on scouts or certain situations, they might flip flop, but they're usually pretty. They're pretty standard. One's right, one's left. Our 2 DEs or outside backers. We have the stud, the Mike, the strong linebacker, and the strong safety are usually traveling together. And then the whip, the backside ends, and the Sam linebacker are going together. And free safety, depending on coverage, is either in the middle of the field or not on the strength of formation. Everything we do is based on the formation as far as our strength goes to start. Then obviously, as with scouts and maybe some certain formations that we've seen some plays that are getting run out of, we might move those guys a little bit based on that. But we're pretty much standard that those guys are traveling together. And as far as our corners go, I mean, it all depends if they've got depends what the other team has. If there's like a great receiver that we only want one guy to cover, he's going to follow him wherever he goes. If that's not the case, if the ball's on a hash, we'll probably put the better cover corner out in the field, and in the other corner that might not be a great cover corner is going to be into the boundary. But other than that, those are the things that we pretty much stick with. And like I said, but we will, depending upon personnel and formations and what we see, we will tweak that a little bit.
Awesome. Coach Capone, coming to you next. We'll wind this thing down and get one last question for everybody. In terms of, game planning and game day calls, how do things work for you in terms of prep for the red zone stuff when you get down in there?
It starts all obviously preparation. I'll start. We play Friday night. Before I go to bed, generally, I've already looked at evaluated our performance, review it again in the morning, and I'll also, actually the Thursday before our Friday game, I've already done breakdowns on our next opponent, 2 games. We'll get their game from Friday night, sometimes Saturday afternoon, depending on whether I'm going to a college game or not. Start breaking that down and try to have our preliminary game plan done for when we get together on Sunday. And part of that, obviously, is red zone and goal line.
Awesome, Coach. Coach Jones, coming to you next. You're getting ready to break a team down on film and watch their offense. What is like the number one thing that you're watching for the first time you click on the tape?
Well, I don't know if there's the number one thing. First of all, we have to know, I want to know their formations, right? I got to get their formations down, the basic stuff, but I want to know what their philosophy is. If they are a gun team, are they primarily a jet sweep team? What are their tendencies? Is there a player So 2 years ago when we played Lisbon and they had that stud quarterback, he was 80% of their offense. It became very clear, there's the guy we had to stop and get the ball into somebody else's hands. Is there something very obvious like, as Coach Capone said, thank God for huddle because we have a staff of 4 guys. I'm breaking down the next week starting Wednesday, trying to get that information. But in generally, I try to get a feel of what they want to do.
All right, Coach Keys, I'm gonna slide over to you next. In terms of you guys' film breakdown as a staff and getting ready for an opponent, how do you handle that?
Yeah, if we play Friday night, I'm going to give the staff Saturday off, so they don't have to come in at all. I'll bring the team in. We'll do a run stretch for about an hour and 15 minutes. We get them out. The kids are out of there, so it's and then basically what will happen is each coach has a part of the. We want to get the data in as quickly as we can so that we can start our breakdown. So I've got one coach that does the ODK, down and distance, hash stuff. Craig Gressy, my offensive coordinator, and Nick Taylor, my line coach, they'll handle all the defensive stuff that we're going to see from our opponents. Myself, Steve Stinson, we'll chart all the offense. We'll get all the offense loaded in, so that is, hopefully by the time we meet Sunday, we've got at least 2, maybe 3 games in. We never go more than 4 games. Generally 4 is the most that we'll put in, and then we'll meet Sunday morning. We'll break our tape down. We'll spend a good couple hours grading ourselves out, and then we'll spend another half hour just talking about us. So literally the first 2.5 hours, it's just about us. We're not worried about the opponents, and then we'll begin the game plan. We'll spend about an hour or so together, and then basically what happens, we'll go home, and then I'll just touch base with Craig and Nick later in the day as they're putting the offense together. They're kind of putting that piece together. Stintz and I will take care of the defense, and then the other two assistants that I have, they'll take care of the special team stuff and get all that charted out for us. So hopefully by the time we come, in Monday, we've got the scouting reports done. We've graded ourselves out. We've got a tech guy that puts together some. We try to pull out the highlight. We want to pull out lowlights of things that we're not doing well and have a focus each week. And generally we try to focus on ourselves. We want to make sure that we're getting better. And obviously want to give some tendencies. And I think as we get later in the year, the bigger games, you're going to give the kids more. But early on, we want to focus more on ourselves and just get generally better improvement in our play.
Awesome. Mark, going to go to you next. In terms of, when it is time to translate that information to the kids, just talk a little bit about the install and how you use Huddle to try to break down the other teams for the kids and get the game plan in with them.
So one of the things that I'll do is when I start breaking down the film on the weekend or during the week, obviously, as the season goes on, you've got all kinds of films on a lot of those teams you're going to play. And as I go through them, even though it might not be the actual team, I'm scouting one team, for that Friday. But if I see things from a team that we're going to see further down, I'll just make, just make a note of it somewhere for myself so that when we get to them further down in the season, we'll get those 2 games. I'll break down those 2 games formationally, the plays. Then I'll make folders just by formation, and then after that, I'll pull some of the plays that I might have seen from some previous games that I don't have in those folders from those 2 games that we just that I just broke down. So I'll add those there like that. And then, I get those folders there, we put them out, the kids have them, so they can just watch them that way. I mean, I'm pretty big on formationally, what's, formation recognition. That's the first thing we look at. We call our strength. What's the formation? And I want the kids to be able to go through a checklist in their head. In this formation, what are they trying to do? Who's the best player? who have we talked about all week, just so that we're ready there, so we can kind of mentally kind of have an idea of what you're going to potentially see out of a certain formation. But one of the other things that I'll do is also we put a game plan together. I'll get a packet together. We get a rough draft of it at the beginning of the week on Monday. It's pretty much just the coaches will keep it after we've done all our meetings, and come up with what we want to do. I'll put a packet together. Just the coaches have it. We take it out to practice. We talk about, obviously sometimes your best plans on Sunday, when the first time you see it on Tuesday afternoon, it's not the best plan. So we'll have it. We'll make, we'll tweak it if we have to during the week. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, it's complete. And then we'll make sure the kids have it in their hands after practice and gives them something to reference and study and get them in hopefully the best situation on Friday night to perform. And, the less thinking they have to do, obviously, we all know that. The less thinking they have to do on Friday night, the better off you're going to be. That way, they can play fast and not have to process a lot of things.
Loose and fast, man. Love it. Kempy, going to you next. We'll get into, for you and Coop, just kind of a game day question. You have, I would say, like an ass load of blitzes. Quite an array in the arsenal. When you're dialing those up on game day, like how are you choosing? You get some tempo teams who are going no huddle. Like, is there some sort of method to the madness there, and how are you dialing those up against guys?
Yeah. So the first thing is protections. That's the very first thing that we look at, because we can handle the run game. You're not going to pop a lot of big runs against us. So the pass game is first and foremost for me. So we're gonna study every protection that you have, and we're gonna dial up our blitzes based off of your protections. Are we going to be right 100% of the time? No, but whether you're man slide and sliding away from the back and inserting the back to that side, or whether you're bringing the back across, we're always trying to get our pressures away from the slide side of the protection. So that's first and foremost with our pressures when we dial those up. As far as the run game goes, there's certain run pressures that we all have in our packages that we like better versus the run game. So the top, 2 or 3 runs that you're going to have inside and perimeter runs, we're going to have a couple of pressures that, our top pressures for inside run, a couple of top pressures for outside. But to be quite honest, other than the protections, but even with the protections, we're going to mix the blitz paths. So, we'll go into every game with bomb and away, which is to the back and away from the back, field and boundary. Those are our 4 staples that every single game we play, no matter who we play, you're going to get bomb and away, to the back, away from the back, field and boundary, and you're going to get a bunch of different paths. So you're going to get 2 off the edge, you're going to get X off the edge, you're going to get 1 outside, 1 inside. You're going to get you're going to get picks inside. You're going to get all those combinations. But there are some that we like better versus the run. As far as run pressures go, I like away pressures with the picks. So I like, 2 inside linebackers away from the back, to the side the zone's coming with, the X blitz, the pick to the inside. I think that's really hard for high school kids to be able to handle that. So, that's going to be my number 1 type of run blitz is going to be an away pressure with a pick. My number 1 pass pressure is going to be, we call it smoke. So we're going to bring our defensive end up the field and bring our down safety underneath and bring our stack backer into the A gap, and then slant the front away. So I think that's really tough to handle in pass protection. But for us with the pressures, it's protections first, run pressures that we like next, and then give you as many different passes as we can.
Awesome, Coach. Coop, I'm going to go to you last, but my house is going a little crazy here. In terms of just in-game calls, are you predicated more on down and distance stuff? Are you going by feel most of the time, based on how the game's gone so far? just talk a little bit about how you kind of work your way through your calls for your fronts and coverages in the game. And this will be the last question, then we can let guys on and ask a few before we close it out.
Yeah, so I think you go into the game with a basic plan on what you want to do. That's probably based a lot on down and distance and what type of formations you're getting, what type of run pass percentage you're getting based on each down and distance. But the thing with high school football is a team can change pretty quickly based on what they have for personnel. You might have scouted them on with a certain running back, and then something happens to him during the week and he's not playing. So things are going to get different real fast in a lot of high school football games. So I think you got to be ready to adjust and go more on feel of the game. Sometimes your kids might be able to adapt to a certain thing that the offense is presenting. They might be able to adapt quickly on some things, not quickly on other things. So you got to be able to patch those holes on things that they're not doing well. You go all week expecting your kids to be able to play this type of play out of this defense and play it like this, but then all of a sudden, whatever they're seeing, however they're processing the offense, and that they can't. So you got to be able to have some answers when those types of things go on. So as far as us and me, I'm not going to go in with a ton of calls. God bless Kempy and that devil may care attitude and getting after the offense with the blitzes. That's really not how we operate most of the time. We're going to go in with probably just a handful of different calls, a couple of fronts, 3 or 4 coverages, a couple of blitzes, a couple of movements up front. And that's going to be it. But what I want to make sure is whatever the offense's best plays are, we're going to have at least 2 ways of stopping those plays. That way, if our kids aren't adjusting well out of this defense to stop this play, now we have something else we can go to that's dialed up and ready to go. And so I think you gotta adjust like that. These are high school kids. What you planned on may not be what's going on a Friday night, and we've all been there when that's been the case. So you start with a plan, you try to execute the plan. Hopefully, you got the dudes where pretty much whatever you want to do, they can do. But it doesn't always work like that. You got to be ready to adjust in a hurry.
Well, that was awesome, fellas. Great stuff. I could sit here all night just pegging questions at you guys, I think. But we'll wrap this thing up. If you guys who are out there in the audience want to turn your cameras on, turn your mics on, and get a couple questions with these guys before we go, come on in. Coach Lipp, your first one on. We'll let you go first.
I can't believe it.
Hey, he's awake too. I don't see a pillow. I don't see any groove.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm learning. I don't have questions. You guys are so thorough. I'm good. I don't have any questions.
Wow.
All right. Coach Goff, we'll go to you, man.
Yes, sir. You gentlemen playing cover 2, you talked about the depth of your corners. Can you talk a little bit about the depth of your safeties?
Yep. Our safeties are 12 yards on the hash. And they can move in if the number 1 receiver is obviously, tighter than that, then he's just got to put himself in a position where he can play the fade. If we were to get, the number 2 run to the flat where the corner's going to jump that, we've got to make sure that safety can get off the hash and play the fade ball. So we tell him, your base alignment's a hash. Anything narrower than that, you've got to put yourself in a position where you can play the fade ball by number 1. So make sure you can play that. Over just a condensed set, tight end, depending upon what we're going to see to that backside, if it's a primary run team, we may move him up to 8 yards or so. So it's still, we're playing cover 2. We've got cloud support there with the corner, but we may tighten him up. We may not leave him at 12 to a condensed tight end. Now, that tight end's a real good player. You can get down the middle of the field, and that's what obviously the depth will be determined by what type of receiver that person is.
Awesome. Coach Johnson, you got something?
No, I'm good, thanks. Just taking it all in.
All right, Coach Elwell.
Yeah, I'm wondering, this is for obviously all you guys. So when you're in the red area, I prefer to stay in zone just based on my run fit and my safeties, in our quarters coverage. But what are some different options as beyond bringing 6 and playing cover 0 behind it? What are your teaching points when you get in that red area?
Coop and Kempy, you guys want to take that one?
I'll go first real quick. So red area to me doesn't really matter. It's the hot zone. So I don't care really what you do from the 20 to the 12, but when you get to the 12-yard line, that's when shit changes for me. So we call that the hot zone from the 12 to the 2. And then from the 2 in is goal line, and that's a completely different ball game. But from the 12 to the 2 is really the area that we spend some time with. As far as a changeup goes, we'll play what we call fence coverage. It's a 7 across level zone. So we're going to put, guys outside of any routes by number 1. We're going to put guys inside of all routes by 1, outside of routes by 2. We're going to put guys inside of routes by 2, outside of routes by 3. And we're going to bring one of our second level defenders and insert the free safety to that blitzer to take his zone. So we're going to play even spacing, 7 across zone, 4-man pressure, bringing one of those. You don't know who we're bringing. It could be the Rover, the Will, either one of our down safeties, or any one of the 3 inside linebackers. And our free safety will insert and take their zone. And we're going to play spacing across the field with the idea that we never drop deeper than 5 yards into the end zone. And use the back end line as our 12th defender. So that's what we do as far as our zone coverage when we get down inside the 12. And then we will play some man down there, but that's our zone that we've got. Cool.
Yeah, I would say for us, similar to what Kempy's saying. I mean, I think in high school football, offense is on the 20. Things aren't really changing all that much. It's really you got to get closer to the 10-yard line before things are going to change for the offense. We're probably going to. That's where we're going to focus on playing man the most, I think. I mean, we'll play quarters. We've dicked around with a red zone type of coverage, like Kempy was just saying. We call it cover 10 because we play it around the 10, but it's basically something similar. It's, without going into any boring details, but we don't play it enough for you to even really talk about it because you won't see it that much on our tape, but because we've never really gotten good at it. So we're probably going to play man, honestly, because you're definitely not playing cover 2 quarters against some teams, and then man against everybody else.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome, Coach Thurl.
Yeah, I know, Coach Kezal, you talked about the back end being the initial point of calls. Do you guys spend a lot of time with 2 particular players or just the linebackers trying to make the calls and the adjustments? I know myself, I work with just the free safety and the Mike backer so they can set everything. Do you guys have people that you specifically have to meet with and spend extra time with coaching up before the week?
Yeah, I mean, during the week, our safeties are going to make the calls in the secondary, but we don't huddle defensively, so all the kids are getting the coverage calls. So when it comes in, the safety is going to communicate to the outside linebacker in the corner. They're going to make sure that they're all on the same page. Those 3 work together on one side of the ball, and the other 3 on the other side will work together. And then up front, our Mike generally is going to make the calls. But during the week, what we'll do on Tuesday is our Mike will make all the calls. On Tuesday, our backer makes all the calls. So if there's an injury, he's our second guy. So yeah, we'll change up who's making the calls. We obviously rotate a third linebacker there too for depth purposes. But generally we have, during the week we'll switch that up each day.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach. I have one other question. I already know what Bonnevie does, so I'm going to go to Coach Jones and Coach Capone on this one. In terms of the teaching for the nose tackle, do you prefer to have a guy who can 2-gap? And I know it may be different between a 3-4 and a 3-3, but do you prefer a 2-gap guy or do you like to slant a lot? Coach Jones, I'll hit you up first.
Go ahead.
We like to slant because we never know the type of kid we get. Sometimes we get this year we had a kid from China who weighed 260 pounds, could be a great two-gap player. Sometimes we have a wrestler, 175-pound wrestler. And we want to have him use his ability for leverage and use his speed, and we'll give him a gap and say, that is yours.
Coach Capone, how about you?
It varies on the kids you get. I mean, I played with many different body types at Bates, from an ass kicker, 6'3", 280, that would just maul you, to a former linebacker that was how big was Joey, Coach? 5'9", 250?
Yep.
And it just varies. But I'm not a two-gap guy. We're going to define our big thing for our nose guard. He's going to knock the center back. He's going to latch off, and he's not going to let him get to the next level. He's going to hold him. And we're playing our base fundamental, so our linebackers can run free. So if they're trying to scoop, and that center's trying to come off to the front side linebacker or inside zone, he ain't going there. He's on the ground. Period. End of story. And that way the Mike linebacker can fit. So I think it keeps it consistent. You know what I mean? I would do that whether I was in a 3-4 or a 3-3. I firmly believe that nose guard has got to be your best interior player. He's the point of the defense. And the guys that we had we played by committee. They pointed it up, and there was no movement there. And again, think about it, especially in high school. What's the most difficult position to play in the offensive line? Mike, how many times have you yelled at your center for a bad snap?
I don't yell at him anymore because I get yelled at by Barkley when I yell at him.
Okay, and I just think forcing that kid to snap the ball, he's always being told, what's the most important thing? Get the snap back. And I talked about nose guards about just getting their hands on him right now. Again, first step, hands, get extension, knock him back. Play the backside gap, whichever way he was going. We worked that over and over. And then, obviously, then you change it up with as Coach Jones was saying, with your movement. So again, they're not hitting that stationary target all the time. And again, if you got a smaller kid, a wrestler, or whatever, maybe you move him a little bit more. It all depends.
I'm with you. I'm probably speaking for Mark a little bit here, but I'm with you on. We've always built our 3-4, or it used to be a 5-2, and now because of the evolution of the spread, it's 3-4. But we've always built it on the nose tackle is the best player on the defense. He's the guy that can make it happen. We play a lot more two-gap probably than a lot of people do. We happen to have a couple guys that really we're lucky to have two guys that can teach it and teach it really, really well. When we've had those wrestler types, we've actually stood them up in a 2-point stance and backed them off the ball a half a yard, which is a technique that Coach Haley used to use. The bubble nose, he called it. And, Coach Bach kind of turned it into this new thing. And, we've taken our backup Mike and taught him how to play bubble nose. And, give some teams
Tennessee bubble.
I think if your nose tackle can really make those 3-on-1 reads between the guards and the center, that's a bitch for teams that are going to pull guard. It's we've given a lot of teams a lot of fits on that over time, I think. So
hey, we've had a bubble nose. Other than this year, Dame was the first kid that put his hand in the ground. We've had a bubble nose every year that I've been there.
Yeah, I mean, we really had played one for a while because we really hadn't had a bigger kid. This year we started with a kid who was about 5'10", 230, 240, and he was just better in the 3-point stance. But against Davy's team, he broke his leg late in the game, and we lost him. And we kind of cycled some kids through there, and we took what's Brent Grant mark 5'7" maybe with his cleats on.
Maybe.
But he's built like a keg. He's probably 185, 190. I'll tell you, if you click on the Wells tape when we played down, he just he's talking about a 5'7", 190 kid who just ate them up because when one of those guards left, he was in the gap and gone, and they killed him. And even
for
Dave,
you offensive line guys, there's nothing more disheartening for an offensive line is for your center to come off and say, I can't block this guy.
Yeah,
And
no,
I can't do it.
100%.
You
And
force
to be
the
quite
double
honest-
team. You force the double team. It frees up your linebackers. If you can have, that nose can force that double team.
Yeah, and it happened to us in the state game when we played MCI. We couldn't block that nose in the first half. That's really what had us scuffling. And we made a couple of adjustments at halftime and found a way to double him, and really most importantly found a way to get our guards on him instead of our center, because he just couldn't handle him. But that, to me, that can be the most disruptive thing in the odd front. If that guy's good and he can play and you can coach him up a little bit to be a little smart too, then you got something. So.
Ever of him, Coach Hath, the nose man for MCI?
It was the younger Buzzle, so he's coming back. He's a good one. He'll probably be their best kid up front, I would imagine. He's pretty good. He was a sophomore, says Coach Snell, so got him for 2 more years. That kid was a good player.
Yeah.
So
He was good. Yes, he was. Yep.
So yeah, I'm going to kind of end it with that, fellas. If you guys are good, appreciate it, man. That was awesome. I can sit here all night, and these round tables have been fantastic. Starting last night with the OL guys, and tonight with the defense stuff, and it's unbelievable. So I appreciate you guys, willing to be panelists coming on board, and certainly appreciate the guys coming in and helping come up with questions and stuff like that. It's been fantastic. And tomorrow we got wing tee and spread offense, so BL can get the notepad and maybe a couple pencils sharpened up and ready to go. BL's on the panel tomorrow night, so you guys get a chance to we'll grill him tomorrow night pretty good.
Coach Hathaway, you are not going to mute me.
I'm only talking defense.
Tomorrow night, so
Only talking defense.
We all know who that guy is. I'm going to be that guy.
all right, I'm fully expecting it
shit.
tomorrow night, man.